Okay, hi guys. I'm going to talk about aggression. The first in your block of them. I'm going to start with the media. So I just want you to think about what makes you aggressive. Why is somebody more aggressive than you? Is it your genes? Is it your hormones? Is it anything like that? Right. But in this instance, we're going to look at the effect of the media. Right. We'll look at what the media is. We're going to look at different types of studies into the media. The short-term, the long-term effects, all things like that. And in this case, we're ignoring genes, we're ignoring hormones, we're ignoring your family, evolution, anything like that. We're just going to look at the effects of the media. Okay, here's the biggest question you can get from the spec. All right, 16 marks. Describe and evaluate research into the effects of computer games on aggression. Okay, it could say also media there rather than computer games, but you're going to need to know some studies and what's good and bad about those studies, and then some general points. So we're going to go through those now. Okay, what's the media? There is a 2 marker here. All right, so you just need to know that it's broader than just newspapers, so it's broader than just films or books. Right? So it's everything. The media is everything that comes at you: TV, film, books, news, entertainment, even me, education, assemblies, things like that. Right? Computer games, again, I know you'll know this, but just to make sure you understand that it's all of them, the different types. You've got simulations, first person, role play. And one of the big things with media is the fact that it's moving so fast onto the kind of, how good simulations are now, and how real life they are compared to, even in this lesson, you'll look at one that looks at Mortal Kombat, and some of you may not have heard of Mortal Kombat, but in the day that was amazing. But if you were to look at Mortal Kombat now, it looks very kind of old and scrappy compared to modern day kind of GTA and things like that. Okay, so the way this breaks down is we're going to look at a study for each one of these four sections. Right, the first 3 I say they're methods, because the first 3 are actual experiments, whereas meta-analysis, I spelled that wrong, but is not experimental. Right, so we're going to look at a study for each one of these 3 sections, and then we'll evaluate those sections, and that will form your AO3. Right. The first one. So the way I've done this is just writing the brackets at the top the way that I would probably remember it, the 3 words that I think are the most key. So however you want to make your notes, that's fine. I see this one as kind of being a spider diagram or your own notes, but wherever it is, this is it. So I'll take you through it. First of all, you've got the people, Bartholow and Anderson. Okay, it's a lab study, right? So straight away you're thinking, okay, I can evaluate that. We've got students, okay, straight away you're thinking you can evaluate that. And we're looking at short-term effects. So they're going to do this study, they're going to play Mortal Kombat or PGA golf, okay, and then they're going to be tested for aggression, and then they go home. So it's short-term, it's not long-term. So the measure of aggression here is something called the Taylor Competitive Reaction Time Task. And you can look it up, you can pause this now and look it up and see someone doing it, but basically it's a task where you think you're giving white noise or loud noise to somebody that gets it wrong. So you're told if they get it wrong, you can crank this kind of turner up and give them an amount of noise as a kind of negative reinforcement. The noise is meant to be the measure of aggression. So the louder you turn it up, the louder, the more aggressive you're going to be. Right? So that's what that Taylor Competitive Reaction Time task is. Okay, and we can talk about that in the evaluation later about whether that's a proper task or not. Right? So they've gone in, they either play Mortal Kombat, which if you really don't know what it is, you can look it up as well, but it's a basic fighter versus fighter, and you kick, slap, whatever, versus PGA golf, which is your simple golf game. Right? So a violent versus non-aggressive game. Okay, then given this test, and they found that those that played the violent video game gave significantly higher noise. Okay, and whenever someone says significant, if you don't remember that from AS, but it means that it was a really big finding. It's not just a little bit; it's significant. So the people that were playing Mortal Kombat gave a significantly higher amount of noise. We got the numbers there, 5.97 decibels as opposed to 4.6. Right, and that is that study. Okay, correlational. All right, so straight away you should have some understanding of what correlational means. We're not changing anything here. We haven't manipulated an IV. Okay, we're actually measuring something, and that's what correlational was about. So here we got Matt DeLisi, 2013. So a recent study, unlike maybe the last one, which is a bit older. Okay, this is looking at juvenile offenders, serious aggression. I've put such as punching a teacher. That's real. Okay, they did other things as well, but we're talking about people that in school, okay, are doing really seriously aggressive actions. Okay, and we've got 227 of these. Okay, we're going to look at them. It's in a structured interview, so think about what that actually means. They're going to have set questions that they ask. Okay, how much TV do you watch? How many computer games do you watch? How much do you like those computer games? Blah 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 blah. Okay, so they're going to ask and spend a bit of time looking at these 227 people in a bit more detail. Okay, what did they find? Well, there's a significant correlation between aggressive behaviour, so how aggressive the person was, and how often, and especially how much they enjoyed games. So if you think about somebody here, it's somebody that would say, yeah, I play a lot. I play a lot of video games. I really enjoy them, and they also happen to be the most aggressive people. Okay, so the more aggressive they were, the more likely they were to have enjoyed and play aggressive video games. Right, so that's quite a key finding. The other one that these start to make, and if you follow the news, you see that as well, is that they're trying to make these a really serious issue. Okay, they argue that the link is so serious and the link is so strong that it should be considered a public health issue. Okay, which means things like the not allowed to smoke in pubs is a public health issue, HIV, condom use, things like that. It should be a really big thing, and maybe even the government should be putting adverts out. You might have seen those adverts about drink driving. What Matt DeLisi here is saying, that the correlation is so strong that it should be a public health issue. There should be adverts. There should be things like that going on with it. All right, that's the correlational analysis. The last one, longitudinal, before we look at meta-analysis. So longitudinal, hopefully you understand what that means. It's going to be over a long period of time. We're going to be following these people over, a longitudinal is anything over kind of 5 years. In this instance, you can see we're talking about 26 years. So it's a very, very, very big longitudinal study. Okay, we've got Robertson, 2013, again, published the findings quite recently, so good. Okay, we've got 1,037 people born in New Zealand. I've written Kiwis there. Okay, born in 1972 to 73. So 26 years after that, okay, they're looking at their TV usage, how much they're doing it, and whether we can predict anything that happened. So by the time 26 years later, we've got whether they've been convicted, how would people say they're violent. We've got all of these different things that we can look at to see whether any of them are predicted. Okay, and here we've got the findings. TV was a good predictor of aggressive behaviour in adulthood. So those which watched the most TV were also most likely to be violent criminals, convictions. And that's quite a big thing to say, that those you might be watching this and think that your little brother or your sister or you watch too much TV. Well, actually, they found here that those that watch a lot of TV more likely than anyone else to be convicted of violent crimes. Okay, the highest TV viewers were most likely to be diagnosed with an antisocial personality disorder. Okay, that's quite big as well. The more TV, I mean, maybe that's the obvious. The more TV you watch, the less social you are. So you're going to get antisocial personality disorders. Okay, and the last point there, it may be actually about the amount of time rather than what you actually watch. So if you only watch half an hour, but it's really aggressive TV, they're saying that might be less important than if you watch loads and loads of just TV. All right, so you've got antisocial disorders, high TV equals aggressive behaviour. Okay, the meta-analysis. I've got 136, all cultures worse than second-hand smoke. Here we've got Anderson. Actually, going back, what a meta-analysis is, if you don't know that, then you need to write it down. Meta-analysis is a gathering of all of the studies, or a huge amount of the studies. So in this case, Anderson has got 136 studies. So we've just looked at 3. Those 3 may well have been involved in it. Okay, you need to look at another 133, bring them all together. Okay, it's not the reason why it's not an experiment is because he's not actually doing anything. All he's doing is gathering the information and seeing it, kind of putting it all together to form conclusions. So that's what meta-analysis is. Okay, found that findings across all genders and cultures. So there's no gender bias. It wasn't more for men or more for women. It was everything. And also this idea of a collectivist and an individualistic society that is found in both of those. And that's important because quite a lot of things you find that there's a difference. Okay, when we look at gender this year, you'll find that there's a difference between collectivist cultures and individualistic cultures. But this is saying there is no difference across cultures. The higher the quality of the study, the stronger the finding. Right? So the better the study. So if we were to analyse a study and say, we controlled the variables, they did this really well, they did that really well, then the stronger the study, the higher quality the study, the stronger the findings. So that's important. And again, making this really large point about the fact that it's something the researchers are saying that this is a serious problem. Okay, that it's as bad as it's as good a predictor as secondhand smoke and cancer is what TV, media, and aggression. Right? And then I've got this final point: no indication of publication bias. We'll come to that in a second. You can just write publication bias down, right? And it's got no indication of public bias. So he's looked at all the research and found this. Right? And I'll take you through publication bias in a second. Okay, so on to the O3. I don't want to tell you too much of these. We're going to do it in the lesson and write them out. But you should have a basic understanding of the way you're going to get these AO3 points. And the ones we're going to talk about right now are just about the studies. There's going to be the bigger ones like reductionist and free will and deterministic and things like that we can talk about as well. But these in particular, the lab study, okay, so the first study we looked at, the Mortal Kombat one, okay, its strengths and weaknesses. So lab, you can control things, okay, you can control the variables, but you get other things, other problems with extrapolating that out, generalizing it, the fact that it was short-term effects. Okay, so that's when we find a lab study, that's what we look at. Correlation should pop out as well, that because we're just looking at the effect of one and the other, we can't find a causal link. I put chicken or the egg there, which means that which came first. Does the person watch TV because they are aggressive and have a personality disorder already, or does TV, aggression, the media, whatever, make them and cause the personality disorder? And it's very hard to say. It doesn't actually prove anything. It just shows that there is a correlation. Okay, it doesn't actually have a theory. How do we measure aggression is a really important thing. So do you actually think playing a game and turning volume up is a measure of aggression? Is that actually right? Is it adequate? Does it show the effects of aggression? Right? There's other ones you'll see as we go through this where people put their hand in ice. How long can you put someone's hand in ice for? Is that a measure of aggression? Because ethically we can't actually go go and have a fight and count how many times they punch each other. We could do something, content analysis within a playground or something like that. But here a discussion point is around how do they measure aggression. Even when we look at the longitudinal and things like that, they're measuring aggression through how many times they've been convicted. It doesn't necessarily mean aggression. I could be really, really aggressive. You could be really aggressive, but we're a bit smarter and we don't get arrested. So we would come out as non-aggressive on that scale, but we would be getting away with it. Right? And that's something that we'll discuss all the way through about how have they kind of quantified aggression, how have they measured it. Right? And it's something to always look out for when you're looking at studies. Longitudinal, the main one with the longitudinal is the confounding variables. What we mean by that are the variables that they haven't controlled for, and they haven't controlled for any really. They've just controlled for when they were born, and then kind of gone through interviews and measured how much they watch TV, and then some other ones about how many times they were convicted. So they haven't actually controlled anything. They haven't controlled any of the other variables that might have an effect. For instance, family. For instance, genes. For instance, hormones. For where they were brought up, the weather. All of these things could be confounding variables. And then finally onto the publication bias, just so you understand what we mean by publication bias. The way I always think about this is, if you were in charge of a newspaper, are you going to make public, or you know, actually put it out into a journal something that isn't that interesting? Okay, so there may well have been lots of studies out there that found no effect at all. You know, looked at the effects of TV or video games and didn't really find anything. Okay, and then they give those studies over to a peer or a journal, and the journal says, well, that's not interesting enough. So it goes into this idea of a file drawer. It gets plonked somewhere, and no one looks at it again. All right, so that's just when you see this idea, or you realise that there is this thing now in A2 called publication bias. All right, hopefully that helps. In the lesson, we'll be going through all of these. We'll look at STEM stuff. We'll look at AO2, how to relate back to it, and you'll be writing one of these for AO3 points. All right, bye.